On your marks, get set. What's up everyone? On today's cross country episode, we're going to be talking about how to race. Now, this is a difficult topic to discuss because everyone has a different racing strategy. If you're an experienced racer, feel free to skip this video. You probably already have something that works for you, and by all means, stick to it if it works. If you'd like to learn more about how to race, how to play to your strengths, how to run a cross country course, be tactful, stay tuned as we dive on in. First things first, figure out a game plan. 7 times out of 10, the game plan will be completely blown through and compromised in the first half mile. But nonetheless, have a game plan and have different scenarios, so if something goes wrong, let's say the first half mile of the race is too quick, then you know how to adapt. If you're more of a speed runner, it's probably best to kind of hold back a little bit in the beginning and then wait and use your strength at the end for the race, because most speed runners typically don't have a lot of endurance. They rely more on their speed, and so when it comes down to the last mile of the race, they're typically already done, legs are shot, cardio's gone, so at that point it's not doing you any good. On the other side of the spectrum, you have your endurance runners. These are people whose strengths are a little more with the long distance, they have a little more strength to their running, so in that case, it's probably best you take it out a little harder, push the pace early, because most of the time you'll break the speed runners and you'll be able to keep on going and hold that pace longer than your competition. Now, let's break it down further. Mile 1. It's a distance race. You're not going to win a cross-country race in the first mile. They don't have someone there handing out awards at mile 1. The key for mile 1 is don't take off too fast. You will regret it later. Mile 2. Mile 2 is typically when things hit the fan, to say it nicely. This is oftentimes when your game plan is already blown. This is also when you start to realize that you either started off too fast or you started off too slow. If you started off too fast, then you're typically starting to hurt at this point, which everyone hurts at mile 2 or even at mile 1 almost. So you either started off too fast or you started off too slow. Mile 2 is kind of when you start to realize your game plan and what you did early in the race is paying off for you or not. If you started off too fast, you can be really hurting right now and kind of falling off the lead group. If you started off too slow, you can be outside of the striking distance from the lead group and you don't have enough real estate to catch them. If you started off too slow, you could be outside of striking distance and really losing gaps on the people ahead of you and losing some distance on them. So you could be out of the race at this point if you started off too slow. Mile 3. This is where the money's made. Mile 3 is where the races are won. Mile 3 is also where your training shows. Mile 3 is kind of a breaking point for a lot of people. This really shows when your training comes into play, and while a lot of the other runners are slowing down and slowing throughout the race, you're actually picking it up and speeding up and picking off those runners that started off ahead of you, and they just don't have the endurance that you have due to your training. If you'll notice with most high school cross-country runners, their first mile is always the fastest. The second is the second fastest, and the third mile, they're just trying to hang on and survive for dear life. Breaking this mold can really help you become a better cross-country runner and honestly propel you to that next level that you're striving for. If you'll ever notice with the professional runners, they typically either run even splits or they even run a negative progression run, meaning that their first mile is actually their slowest, or their second mile may be a little slower, and then their last mile is the fastest. Implementing this racing tactic or this racing game plan where you're kind of going out slower and gradually picking off runners as you go throughout the race that they may have started out faster than you, this gives you a psychological edge. It can really help you motivate yourself throughout the race, which is really needed that last mile. And this can kind of help you push to the end while other runners are really falling off the pace. Because believe me, there's nothing better than passing people in the last mile. This can kind of help you give that psychological edge over the physical hurting and the legs tiring and all that kind of stuff that comes along with mile 3. So anything you can do to get an advantage, I highly suggest you go with it. Study the course. This is something that is key to understanding cross-country. As we mentioned in video 1, cross-country courses are rarely the same. They're all different, each and every single one, so oftentimes races will give you a map of the course. If you have a map, try and study it. A lot of times you're able to go and review the course or preview the course ahead of time, the day before typically. So this gives you ample time to be able to go look at any kind of hills, turns, straightaways, any loose gravel or sand that may be causing you problems. For your elite runners, understanding the course ahead of time is essential. If you don't know the course ahead of time, it can really hurt you in understanding your game plan and when to attack, where to attack, some places that are you need to watch out for. Even if you're not elite, it's almost a necessity to know if there's hills on the course. Because believe me, nothing is worse than not knowing when a hill is coming. Something else people often don't think about is turns. If it's a very technical course, this can play to your advantage. This is actually a racing tip I got from an old teammate in college, and this is what they used to do in Kenya. So whenever you're running a race and it's very technical, and you're going around a curve, if you have a gap on someone, as soon as you make the turn, sprint for about just 3 or 4 seconds, that's it. Nothing to tax the body, nothing to really get you out of breath, just enough to get you around the curve really fast so whenever that runner last saw you and when they see you again, you're going to be almost double that gap. This creates a psychological edge over your competition and enables you to have that next level up on your competition. So for example, if you were 10 yards ahead of your competition when you went around the curve, give it that nice little push for a couple of seconds, and then when your competition gets around the curve, now you're 15 steps ahead of them. This can play monumental changes in your game of cross-country racing. This is what I like to call smart racing. So now you already have them thinking, wow, that runner is pushing a lot harder than I am. They're doing a lot better than me, and they're losing confidence. Confidence is key. Mental strength is key. So anything you can do to kind of damage that in your competition, that's where you want to be. The next thing, hills. Hills are one of the biggest game changers in a cross-country race. These can really make or break a runner. While one runner may be faster and have a better kick, usually the strength runners do better on a hilly course. From an elite perspective, hills are a great place to launch an attack in your competition and break away from the lead group. From a beginner or an intermediate level runner, the main goal for hills is to get up as fast as possible without killing yourself. So the best way to approach a hill is to shorten your stride a little bit and pump your arms more. This is going to help you get up, use your momentum for your favor, use that technical analysis of running form to help you get up the hill and save as much energy as possible. Finishing. So now we talked about all this, let's talk about finishing the race. The last half mile is really the nitty-gritty of the entire cross-country course. That is really when your elites show why they're the elites. That is really when it's time to get the race and get going. Now, a tip I learned in college with racing and how to finish. When you get about a half mile from the finish line, you're going to be hurting. You should be hurting. That's cross-country. Unfortunately, it's not a fun sport, and it's not easy either. So when you get to that point, it's good to go ahead and start pushing towards the finish. If you wait until you see the finish line 100 yards away, most likely you're too late. Many runners believe that they're too tired to start sprinting earlier. And I get that, I've been there. But from a psychological standpoint, you can actually start pushing your body much earlier. So for example, most people wait until about 100 yards to start sprinting to the finish line. When they see it, they start seeing the crowd, they get amped up, and they're able to use that adrenaline to help them get to the finish line and overcome that fatigue. Well, you can actually start pushing about 100 yards prior to that, or even farther, a half mile even, and use that same momentum to carry you, because the closer you get to that finish line, the more you're going to mentally overcome that fatigue and want to finish quicker. So this can really serve a huge purpose in the art of cross country. For the beginners and even some of the intermediates, just trying to run a cross country course without walking is the biggest goal you can have. Well everyone, that's everything I have about cross country racing. I hope you have a phenomenal season. I hope this left you with a different perspective on cross country racing. Happy racing.